And we're live. Hello, everyone. We are virtually connecting from the ALTC conference 2016. We're here with Josie and Jane, and with Sue Becker on site. Hi, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself first, and I'm going to ask the virtual folks to introduce themselves, and then we're going to go ahead and move on site so that the keynote speakers and Sue can introduce themselves as well. My name is Nadine Abelmagd. I work at the Center for Learning and Teaching at the American University in Cairo. I do online content development and faculty development, a little bit of both. I'm also pursuing my master's in educational leadership right now, almost done with it actually. And that's about me. I'm your virtual buddy for this session. Wendy and Alan are our backup virtual buddies, and Sue is our on-site buddy. So why don't you guys virtual start introducing yourselves? Let's start with Catherine. How about that?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Catherine Cronin. I am an open educator. I'm currently sitting in my office here at the National University of Ireland in Galway, which is rainy as usual. I've been at the ALT conference for the past 2 years, so I'm really, really missing it, not being there this year. And Josie, I loved your keynote this morning, and I'm going to try and tune into as much of the conference as I can. I'm currently doing research in the area of open educational practices in higher education.
Chris, do you want to go next?
Yep. There we go, I'm unmuted. Hi, so I'm Chris Morrison, and I'm the Copyright and Licensing Compliance Officer at the University of Kent. I'm not at the conference today, but I will be tomorrow, but then unfortunately I can't make the final day, which is a real shame because that's Jane's keynote, and Jane and I have been working together in the area of what we've been calling copyright literacy. How can we make people understand copyright in a way that supports teaching and research and basically linking that in with the idea of information literacy. So I'm just really interested to kind of see where this conversation goes and seeing how some of the ideas around open education link into those areas around copyright and how people understand them.
Thank you, Chris. Remi, you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Remi Holden. I'm connecting today from Denver, Colorado. And I'm increasingly finding that my teaching and also my research is happening in open spaces with various open tools. I'm also really excited to be hanging out with the virtual connecting folks for the second time in a month. So really great to be here with everyone.
It's really great to have you, Remi. Thank you. Sue Tucker, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm joining you from Alice Springs in Central Australia. I work at Charles Darwin University, mainly with our vocational training lecturers as a support for them in their both academic and a little bit of their technology. I have the pleasure of working alongside Wendy, who I think most of you know, and at the moment I'm preparing some materials for a few training sessions that we're having next week as part of our staff development, particularly looking at using social media for professional development. So it's really good that I can join you with this session tonight, as it is for us. It's 10 o'clock.
Great. Maha, do you want to go next and introduce yourself? Maha probably can't hear us very well. She's in the car on her way home, so this might be the.
She's probably better to keep her eye on the road.
Yeah. No, she's in the back seat, obviously. And she dropped. Yeah, her call dropped. That's okay. Wendy, can you go next? And then we're going to go on to Suzanne, who just joined us. I'm very happy she can make it.
Hi everyone, Wendy Tallio, coming from Central Australia. I, as Sue's mentioned, work at Charles Darwin University as a learning technologist, and I'm also studying with Emma, who may or may not still be there, with Open University doing my Masters in Online Distance Education.
Very exciting.
Passing over to you, Susan.
Hi everyone, I'm Susan Adams. I'm an instructional designer at Yale University. Just started about a week ago and testing out my system, so I may go in and out a little bit, but happy to be here and jumping in.
Awesome, happy to have you. On-site folks, go right ahead.
Okay, well, I'm the on-site buddy here, Sue Beckingham, or Sue Becks on Twitter. I work at Sheffield Hallam University in the UK. I'm an educational developer, but also a senior lecturer in computing. So my interest in technology is specifically around social media. I'm really interested in how that connects people and how students are collaborating and doing different things online, including myself, and various opportunities for informal learning, which is really fascinating, and a chance to connect with the people that I'm with, people across the world. It's just incredible. And I've also been involved with Vconnecting a few times, once as a virtual buddy before, but also online, just listening into other conferences. So fantastic window into places that I would never ever be able to go to conference-wise. So incredible venture, love it. So now over to the lovely ladies here, who are our special keynote. So we have Josie Fraser and Jane Secker, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
So my name is Josie Fraser. I'm a social and educational technologist, and I seem to have been online for a very, very, very long time now. I'm very interested in online communities, identity, and I'm very interested in digital rights. I'm currently doing some work for the UK government, doing the new cyberbullying guidance for school kids in the country. And recently I've been working for Leicester City Council in a big project, basically building schools and supporting school staff in becoming digitally literate to help learners, ultimately. I'm here as a keynote this year, which I'm absolutely delighted. I was absolutely delighted to be invited to do, and I'm going to pass you over to Jane.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Jane Secker. I am the Copyright and Digital Literacy Advisor at London School of Economics. Absolutely thrilled to be invited to be a keynote. I'm going to be speaking on Thursday about copyright and learning technology and open practices. My interests are really all around kind of just technology and how it's used in education and how it has so much potential, I think. And for me, it's really about helping people understand what they can and not so much about what they can't do, but what they can do with technology. But I think what I don't want to happen is something like copyright and worries about intellectual property be a barrier to stopping people doing things and sharing things. But I do think there is quite a lot that people need to understand about ethics as well, and sort of we touched on that a little bit in your keynote, I think, around this sort of digital well-being and, you know, where the kind of that overlaps with, you know, what you should and shouldn't be sharing online, kind of privacy issues, and, you know, I think that's where intellectual property is really important as well. So what's yours and what you can share and what belongs to other people, and, you know, I've got many interests, but fundamentally I'm a librarian, and my work is around the area of information literacy and how that kind of overlaps with what people are now more calling digital literacy. So,
very good. So what have you thought about the conference so far?
It's been absolutely amazing so far. It's the best keynote ever, I think, in the history of ALTC this morning. It's really good. Obviously, Catherine's was quite good, but the one this morning was really.
Josie's actually been into the future Thursday, so she heard me this morning, I think.
No, I mean, I have to agree with her. I mean, it was such a really nice keynote, honestly. Like, Maha, before she leaves, Maha and I were just sitting and watching it in my office. And now that you mention it, I was in last year's Virtually Connecting session after Catherine's keynote. And I remember us talking a lot about open educational resources then. And I'm gonna, like, I wanted to attempt before we started, I wanted us to do the whole hello thing where we look at the other person sitting next to us and say, hello, how are you, that she did last year in her keynote, which I found really, really cool. What I wanted to say is that it's interesting that both Jane and Josie are joining us today because, at least for me, because a lot of what I do at work has to do with both of these domains and both of these areas. On one end, I help the professors that are designing online embedded courses and developing their content online, and obviously what goes into that is making sure they're careful of copyright, making sure they take permissions whenever they need to. And on the other hand, I talk to the professors also that are doing online courses about how to make it a safe online environment and how to avoid any of these cyberbullying issues. And I give them workshops on netiquette and things that have to do with digital literacy with Maha as well. So I think it's very interesting, and I'm very happy that both of you are able to join me today.
Well, I think one of the kind of common threads between both of us, other than that we're both amazing keynotes, obviously, is that
I'm very modest.
very modest. Is that we're both really interested in open practice and kind of in the field relating to that. So I've done quite a lot of work around open licensing, around the kind of education issues that Jane's working in as well. And really my talk today was focusing on the kind of things that we don't talk about that often, which is how environments and people within those environments, not necessarily just people doing horrible things, but actually the threat of people doing horrible things as well, influences those environments. And if we're talking about open practice, what does that actually mean in terms of inclusivity and diversity online, when we know that mainstream spaces are not always safe spaces for people?
Wow.
I'd say, does anybody have any questions about
that? Not so much questions, but I did have a comment just for you, Josie. Apart from the amazing keynote, was that it come across really well online as far as the question and answers as well. There was some really good questions, and we heard all the questions with the live streaming, and we got the sense of the answers as well. So it was really good experience with the live streaming, I thought.
Oh, well, we'll pass on the compliments to the people that have done that. I think it's one of the things that this particular conference does really well and takes really seriously, is actually trying to make sure that as many people who want to participate can participate. You know, and I think they are totally committed to that, and I think the quality of the work that they do in relation to that is a reflection of how seriously they actually take that.
it would be interesting.
It does show.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know how many people do watch, you know, the live stream, how many people go back and look at the recordings as well. Yeah, because I think we sort of say, well, we're putting it out there and it's really open, but the amount of people that keep saying to me, oh, when's this talk you're doing, and what you know, and you kind of think, well, how many times do you share the link? But if you share it only on Twitter, you know, that only reaches certain people. You share it, you know, with your kind of friends and family, you know, on Facebook or something. You know, is that just completely shameless?
Was your mum watching?
My mum probably would watch if she could get technology to work. She struggles a little bit. So I have a funny story about her with a video that she was sent, which was a photo of my nephew. She didn't realise it was a video, so she sent the reply back saying, "What is on his nose?" And we had to say, it's a play button. Aww. That is not a photo, it's a video.
I blame you for not looking after your mum properly.
Well, I think it's about inclusivity, isn't it? And accessibility. And we shouldn't assume always that everyone knows what a play button looks like, even though I think lots of us do.
So I was just thinking, in terms of the links between intellectual property and digital well-being, this isn't necessarily a fully formed thought. I'm kind of talking as I go, but it's about the way that building a brand is something that people kind of trust. You know, the whole thing about marketing, you have people feel safe when they are linked to a brand that is, I don't know, it's got connotations of kind of being safe if it's a commercial organisations last for a period of time, whereas open practice is about kind of breaking down some of those ideas. I think from what Josie was saying about mainstream spaces are not necessarily safe spaces, and we're talking about ethics and morals, and it's just how you kind of communicate those ideas about what's the right thing to do, what's the best way to behave in those spaces. And a lot of the criticism of intellectual property, I think, is that it's controlled by commercial entities. And I think one of the really interesting things for me is about open practice is that it's not necessarily the polar opposites of kind of the intellectual property is bad. And that getting rid of it makes everything good, because actually those who use Creative Commons use copyright law, and they use brand in order to develop those things. So I mean, it's not necessarily a question is, how does that develop further? How can we continue working with the idea of open practice that kind of, because you feel a warm fuzzy feeling towards a brand that kind of speaks to you, and I think all of us kind of
you're talking about Cadbury's chocolate again now, aren't you?
Well, but I guess we all buy into the brand of education is a good thing, and openness is a good thing, and sharing is a good thing. It's just how do those things come together when it's not being driven by the huge profits being made.
Well, I think it's really in terms of kind of identity and conviction, isn't it? Because we're all here today. Probably none of us are here today for the money.
This is my lunch break.
This is a quick guess. Not that you don't all look fabulously wealthy. I'm sure you all are. But the reason that we turn up is because we actually care, because we actually believe that it's the right thing to do, because we actually think that the money that we are getting to enable us to do certain things will be better spent and have better value by being able to share things more openly and being able to take them forward. So I don't know about brand as the idea. I know what you're saying, but I'm not sure whether that's the word that I would use. It must be. It might be something else in terms of that. Maybe movement, or I said in my talk that I think that open practice is an ethical gesture. It's a political practice. So I don't know whether we need brand open practice or whether we need to get the idea out to more people so that actually more people have got exposure to what that actually might mean and how they might benefit from it.
I guess what I'm thinking about is, rather than brand in terms of selling something, about the idea of having symbols that you can kind of rally behind, things that make sense to people, because that's the reason that marketing works, is because someone's able to take an idea of something and reduce it down to its essence and make it really compelling, and people follow behind it. Whereas I find, when talking to people about copyright and about rights and about kind of arcane legal things, people lose the thread quite quickly or find it all just too much to kind of take in. So how do you kind of bring those two ideas together, I think, is what I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things that kind of being with Jane in this session, and also the reflections on my talk this morning, made me think about is kind of the position of literacies in relation to the work that we do. Because for you copyright people, not that I'm not counting myself.
No.
I'd love to be in your camp, but for copyright people, there's no correlation between copyright education, understanding copyright, and whether you actually make inappropriate use of other people's work or not. I don't think there's a correlation there. And it's interesting to me as well that, like, for trolling, actually, trolls are highly digitally literate. They're highly media literate. They're highly information literate. Their skills are up here compared to all of us mortals. And yet, that doesn't guarantee, there's no guarantor of anything. It doesn't follow through then that they're going to actually be nice people and make a positive contribution to the world in any way. Or they're going to apply those skills in ways that would benefit even themselves.
Which I guess is kind of one of the points. I've been asked, I could do a few spoilers for the keynote. Small ones, but it is quite
Spoilers or teasers? Maybe
bell was going to go off now. I've got what I was going to say. was about the link between copyright and creativity. So there's a kind of, a strong kind of argument from the creative industries that that's what it, well, without copyright laws, where would we be? There would be no innovation, there'd be no creativity, because people only create things because they want rewards. Okay. And so that kind of links into some of what, I don't know, when Chris talked about brand, I was thinking about reputation and credibility, and there's lots of things that motivate us to want to do things, and it's not always, well, certainly not for us, it's not because somebody's giving you a big wad of notes, it's something around your kind of credibility and your reputation, but it is also about kind of then giving something back. I
was just going to say that, because I mean, my work, when I do presentations, I put them on SlideShare, get the Creative Commons license, and for me, that's like, okay, I can give something back to people, because I've learned so much from so many.
But I suppose
looking at the SlideShare, I mean, Catherine's work is just incredible. Catherine Cronin.
We all love your work, Catherine.
We do.
But
I wanted to jump in here, actually. Thank you very much. What I'm thinking as a few of you are speaking is one of the things that you put your finger on so well, Josie, was about the humility of being open. And I think that's such an important part of this. And that's what you're just talking about there, Sue. And I found sometimes when we use the word brand and other words like that, that deters people from perhaps thinking about being open, because then they think they need to be right all the time.
Yeah.
And actually being a learner means that we want to share our half-formed ideas, because that's what truly being open is about, is learning from one another. So, I think that humility and vulnerability is such an important part to stress.
Oh, she said vulnerability.
You did that, Josie, and I just thought that was really well done this morning, because when we talk about marketing and branding, I know that's an important part of the conversation around copyright, but in terms of open educational practices, those things get in the way for people, I have found. I don't know about what anyone else thinks.
One of the things that we really struggle with some of our staff is that they'll write their training materials, but then they keep them all locked up. They're hidden on a USB, and they won't even share them with somebody else who teaches the same subject as them. And with some of them, I think it's because they're scared that they don't want anybody else to look at their materials. But with others, I think it's more of, well, I've invested all this time and effort into writing this, and it's mine, and you're not having it.
Yeah.
There is that, isn't there? Yeah, closed up, nobody's going to be able to see it. But you're right, that vulnerability, and thinking back about, when I first put things out there, I was kind of a little bit worried. What would people think about it? Would it be criticised? Somebody else has done something far better. Would they, sort of send back comments that would upset me? And of course, it doesn't happen like that. It can happen, but it's all part of your development. And even if it is critical comments, that it's a way you can improve whatever you're doing in your own practice, whatever stream that takes. But it's a brave thing to do, I think. Really, I felt so anyway. I don't know about you too.
Yeah, but I think also resilience is really, really important in every context. In every context, because life's not a bowl of cherries, and you get kicked down quite often by quite a lot of things. Hopefully, you don't get really, really badly knocked in online environments, but it's unlikely that you'll spend your whole time that you're online without being upset by someone, without coming across somebody that's quite argumentative, without having those kinds of experiences. But I think, one of the things is to take it into context, one of the things is to keep it in proportion, and to deal with it as best as you can, and to be equipped, I think, to deal with it as well. I think there's nothing worse, especially in terms of kind of like bullying things, to think somehow it's your fault, or it's something that I've got to keep to myself, I can't talk to other people about. I think that's really, really terrible and leads to all kinds of horrible situations. So I think it's really important that we all, whatever age we are, we kind of have these chats about what might happen, what we could do if those kinds of things happen, what we think is appropriate in those situations, because it does help us.
Definitely, yeah.
Also, if you took a certain pathway and it didn't work out, let's learn from that,
Yeah.
share that experience, because it's not always going to be right first time. is it?
There's been quite a lot of people talking at some of the conferences recently that I haven't been at, but I've been following them on Twitter, which I'd love to be able to. You know, it's just great when you can go to so many more events virtually. There's only so much time in the day, even though people think I spend my life at a conference. I do have to do a day job. But I followed quite a lot where people are sharing experiences about failure. And I think there was quite a long time where it was kind of drummed into you that you went and you did a talk and you had to say how fantastic your project was and not all the things that went wrong. And I haven't yet prepared a talk on something that's gone really wrong. But I think that's what I feel I want to talk about next, you know, because I think that is the way we learn, isn't it? You have to, and it's. The other thing as well is this idea that if you just keep doing the things that you know you can do and that work, and talking to the same audiences and the people who are going to go, yes, Jane, that's great, I agree with you, information literacy is the way forward. No, the message will never go out beyond, it will just stay in this bubble. And, you know, we need to talk to lots of different people, and we do need to talk to people that don't agree with us, and, you know, and be quite happy that we've, you know, found, you know, somebody doesn't like what we say, you know, but it hurts a bit, doesn't it? If you know, I had somebody at a conference last year, and, you know, it really upset me that they just came up afterwards and told me all the things I'd done wrong. I think it's quite a mean thing to do, personally.
That is mean.
Yeah,
it was very mean, and he was
Chris
talking
was there.
nonsense.
He had to put up with me collapsing afterwards, going, But then you take from that, you know, that some people get their kick slightly. It's a bit like trolling, isn't it, almost? But actually going up to somebody in person. Yeah, it was very thoughtful of that person. It was, yeah. No, it wasn't at all. But I don't know. So maybe, you know, this like being comfortable to talk about the things that have gone wrong, rather than trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult, because I agree 100% with what you're saying, but also I think that there's different levels of kind of vulnerability and different things on the line. So for some people, talking about this thing that went wrong, for lots of reasons, is quite a safe thing to do, and it's actually quite supported, and, you know, they can get all of the value of the learning out of that. For other people, actually, it's quite a high risk strategy, and they might be in a situation where, you know, actually they lose their job, or, you know, they won't be hired for the next thing. So it's ideally, yes, it's really, really important, but I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that actually it's not an even playing field to start with.
No. Another spoiler, then. I'm going to talk about privilege. I think you mentioned that word, but I'm going to, So I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about information privilege. Just a little bit, but you know, this and to be aware when we have those privileges that we have then a duty to kind of use those to help people that don't have them. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's my second spoiler. Maybe there'll be a third one coming before the end. We've got to finish soon.
Yeah, just looking at there, what Remi was saying, a group I work with in Michigan organised a failure slam from multiple people as a keynote of a conference recently. It was quite powerful.
Wow.
So I'll just briefly mention I'm a co-founder of a group called the Institute for Innovation in Education that's founded at the University of Michigan, and we have two gatherings, small conferences every year. One is international every year, one is at the University of Michigan, and at our University of Michigan gathering this past June, we had a failure slam. I've shared resources to that. I'll leave it there. Folks can explore as they're driven by their interests.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay. Well, I guess we better wrap up now, because the next sessions are about to start. So thanks everybody for tuning in and letting us be part of this. And thank you very much, Josie, and
hopefully everyone enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. The only bad thing is now
we'll definitely be watching your keynote, Jane, on Thursday. So
okay, excellent.
Thank you for questions from me specifically about a lot of the things you're going to be talking about. Excited. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks so
much.
much. Thank you so much.
Bye. We'll be virtually here.
Bye. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and stop the live broadcast, but we can hang around and we can keep the conversation going and talk about copyright and trolling and open education a little bit more. And if anybody needs to leave, they can just let us know, and we're probably just gonna end in about another 5 to 10 minutes in case anybody wants to stick around.
Okay. Do you need to go to a session, or we can?
It's up to you. Do you want to stay?
Yeah, we can stay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Carry on. I thought you
Yeah.
were on to dash off. Yeah.
Okay, well, if we're staying, then let's just keep the live session going.
Oh, okay. We've all
Yeah, I
said
mean,
goodbye.
why not?
I can do my third spoiler.
Or you can just give us your keynote right now and, like, you know, just be done with it.
Practice. You're doing 5 minutes.
No. I'm not. I'm going to talk a little bit about history as well. My first degree's in history, so I'm going to talk a bit about history. Oh, Sue's just suggested I do a little plug for my book. Mine and Chris's book, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, he's doing a big thumbs up.
Good
here.
idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Can everyone see that? Yeah, this is a copyright and e-learning, a guide for practitioners. Can you see that? It's out now. Buy it from any good bookstore.
Yep.
So I've got a
Essential
question
reading.
about that. I've got a question about that, Jay.
What are you saying, Chris?
I've got a question about that. Have you considered doing an open textbook at some point in the future? Because I noticed this one you didn't
I'm very interested in open textbooks, actually. I am. A friend of mine works for the Open Textbook Consortium, are they called, in the US? So I'm interested. This is not a textbook, but chapter 6 of the book, as you rightly know, Chris, is available on open access. So we have made at least some of it, and it is the one all about copyright literacy, which is what I'll be talking about on Thursday. So I think we might be tweeting a link to if people want to read it. I think it's interesting because, yeah, when you think about openness and all this sharing, what still motivates somebody to actually want to publish a book, you know, and have it, the knowledge locked up? It is, you know, if I want to say this, why don't I just kind of put that out there on my blog for anyone to read it? It kind of, for me, I guess it does come down to something about having this tangible object that's been published and, you know, is going to be there, preserved. You know, there are things that happen to books. They all go, you know, to legal deposit libraries around the world. There's something about it being a book, you know, that's not the same if I just put it out online. But I have been thinking I probably ought to make sure that the next book I write is actually completely open, and you know, you can self-publish, can't you? There's various open platforms and things, and so people can read the content, but if they want to, then they can order the
Or you
book.
could co-write with an online audience or of people, so you don't have to do your book all by yourself.
No, well, I didn't do it all by myself, actually. Chris, did you do something?
I did a couple of bits.
Typos. Is that name on there?
But I think for me, that's what's really interesting. I think there's a huge potential in this area, which is really fiddly, complicated, changes all the time. It really comes alive when you have case studies. So if we could actually get our whole community working together, and that's why we're working on this idea of community of practice, with kind of all the copyright nerds coming together to be able to work on something which is, you know, it makes sense to people and is helpful, but isn't some kind of, however nice it is to have a book, it can be quite formidable, and a lot of it is about, you know, how do you find the information that you need, and how can you be sure that it's the latest up-to-date stuff. So I think it's a really great possibility.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Watch this space.
Watch this space, exactly. You keen, Josie? What do you think?
I don't like to commit to anything like that. I write like one blog post a year now, and I feel proud if I can manage that.
Okay.
So, but yes, in theory, yes. I really like the idea of sprints and of actually okay, for this period, we're all going to be working on this text. And at the end of these 2 days, as well as having a drink in the evening, we're also going to have written X amount or achieve something. I love that idea, and I love the kind of idea of creating and creating information and knowledge collectively, and using that as part of how your community comes together and how you get to know people better, and how you know, because that's a great way to spend time.
So waiting for Catherine's book. Have you done that PhD yet?
When's your book coming out, Catherine?
One more year for the PhD. I'm doing.
Sure, that will make a book.
I had big battles with my what's called the graduate research committee here. I know it's called different things in different systems. My kind of advisory committee for the PhD, because the focus of my work is the interactions between staff and students in open online spaces. So the first phase of the study, which is done, was finding those open educators, and really a study of a broad cross-section of educators and why they do or don't use open practices and to what extent. And then so the GRC was saying, well, that would be the full piece of work. You develop a model and that's it. But I didn't want the work not to have the student voice and student perspective. So I'm gathering data over the next couple of months from 2 of those educators and their students who are actually engaged in learning activities and in some cases assessment in open spaces, and getting both the perspective from the educator and from the students. So so it's a little bit longer maybe than it could have been, but I felt it was really important to have the student's voice. So yeah, November 2017, that's my target finish date.
Fantastic. Well, we'll definitely have a party then.
Oh, absolutely.
Chris has just shared the link to the book chapter that's on open access. Thank you.
No worries.
Sneak preview, yeah.
Josie, can I get back to something that you mentioned this morning, just about the trolling again? You know, a lot of us, I'll say, who end up being open education advocates, talk about the experience for students in sharing their work to the world and feedback and all those kinds of things. But a really important element I have found is just how we as educators model being open. So all of the students in any group that I'm teaching may not choose to be open, but our learning community is intentionally open, and therefore, you know, a lot of open practices can be modeled. But it means us being brave enough to deal with whatever may happen. So I'm just wondering, Josie, in terms of you know, serious incidences of trolling that might have arisen in live class situations. It's never happened to me or to anyone that I know, but have you come across that?
So I think actually, as a largely academic education focused community, we've traditionally, historically been quite protected, and we haven't had like huge issues. We have had some, and they've gone on and they go on, but we haven't had the kind of routine trolling that a lot of other people might get, because people frankly don't want to come along to our things. A lot of people are happy to leave us alone. But as we get more interesting as a community, and also obviously the key thing is, as more and more people come online and the kind of expansion of online community develops anyway, that's not going to be the case. It's going to change significantly. So at the moment, the kind of big stories around, you know, those very, very horrible incidents tend to be attached to particularly women writers, women who are in gaming, women in the media, you know, specific high-profile women that have gone on. That's not to say that kind of there's not everyday people that have to deal with those things as well. I think in terms of kind of readiness as a community for dealing with those things, again, the important thing is really to acknowledge that those things go on and to learn from other people. There's a lot of information, especially post-Gamergate, around about, well, what was that experience like? What came out of it? What did I do that helped me through that? What actually would I have done slightly differently if I had the benefit of hindsight? There's a great body of work that people who have been through quite horrible things have been generous enough and you know, had the energy enough to share with us all as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Anita Sarkeesian is amazing, and you know, I mean, just to share her resilience is, you know, is quite something. You know, a lot to be learned. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions from anyone?
Anybody else virtual have any questions to Josie or Jane? None?
You want tea now and biscuits.
Okay, well, I could ask a very quick question to Jane. Actually, I read about that community of practice, the copyright community of practice that you do in your institution.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility or like any plans for you guys doing that online? Are you planning on moving that community to an online community, or if you know of an already existing online community?
Chris and I have been talking about this quite a lot. I mean, this is actually, Chris started this idea at the University of Kent about 8 months ago, was it? Chris, you started it, I think?
Yeah. Very recently, it was in June we did the first one.
Yeah, so, and then because I like copying other people's ideas when they're good, then I copied his idea. And we had our first community of practice at LSE, copyright community of practice, just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? I forget. Anyway, it was recently. It was very recently. It was in August. And but we have been talking about this idea of whether we, I mean, at the moment, the copyright community is supported through a disc mail list, so a listserv, and it's not particularly satisfactory. And I think we've been talking, what would that community actually want? You know, what kind of space? But one of the things about that community is it is quite a safe space. That's really important. That so you have to be attached to an academic institution, or you can work for a museum or a gallery, a kind of publicly funded body. They don't want publishers in that space because people want to ask questions about things they're doing that are potentially infringing copyright. And so it's the safety kind of aspect. Then you get into this whole, how does that work with openness, I think?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't know, Chris, you've done a couple more of these meetings, and they seem to be, I certainly found I got people there, rather than a traditional training session, they came and they talked and they told stories, which is what a community of practice is meant to do. And I tried not to lead it myself, but to kind of say things like, well, when we have these kinds of issues, what do people think we could do about this? You know, because, you know, we all have issues where, well, why do we think lecturers might not understand copyright and upload lots and lots of things to Dropbox and the VLE that, you know, are like a whole book or something? Why would they do this? And to sort of talk about those kinds of issues and to realise there was also a lot of interest in talking about Creative Commons at my first meeting. But you've had quite a few discussions, haven't you, around activities and things?
Yeah, and I've again tried not to lead it too much because I think the thing about the listserv you talk about is it's very. I think people are very scared about putting stuff on there, and I contribute to it quite a lot, and I still sometimes think, oh, if I put this out there, then potentially I'm exposing myself. In terms of my understanding of copyright, my interpretation of a particular copyright thing may not be correct, or it may be that other people have not thought of certain things. And you know, if I'm thinking that, and I'm, you know, one of the people that contributes to it quite a lot, there are probably quite a few people in that space thinking, oh, I don't want to say anything. And also, I should know the answer to this, and I've forgotten it. Oh, and it says copyright in my job title, so how can I have forgotten this?
Yeah, and lots of people do ask, they ask both you and I things off this, don't they, as well, we've noticed. And they'll quite often sort of start with their, I was going to post this, but I didn't really feel brave enough to, because it's this sort of fear of, in that case, you say, kind of exposing yourself and saying, well, this is in my job title and I ought to know this.
But
So what I'm doing at Kent is I'm actually setting up an online space that's just in Kent. Not that we don't want to involve other people, and not that we don't have links outside, but it's more of saying, well, we can share our understanding here and our interpretations of what we do, and also it's hopefully should stop people feeling like they have to be the expert. And in a way, I'm saying I might be the specialist here, but I'm not the expert, because actually I only see one side of it. I only see one facet of the well, you know, I'm not teaching, I'm not a learning technologist, I'm not a librarian. So all those people I want to get in, and we're getting them involved with this community, and we actually see the whole thing, because copyright on its own doesn't make sense. It only makes sense when you're actually doing stuff. It only makes sense when it's a tool to achieve your educational, you know, the aims of your institution or your professional thing. So it's just seeing where it develops, and I definitely want to, that people are saying, and I really wanted to get people to tell me what they wanted. They said, yeah, we do want an online space. They do want a place to talk. They want a place where they can refer back to stuff, because you can say it in a meeting or a session or whatever, and then you forget it, and then it's buried in the middle of a really long and kind of scary looking Word document somewhere. They're not going to, or a PDF, they're not going to be able to find it. So we're trying to develop something which is, you know, actually helps people. So it's going to be like a SharePoint site, which makes most people groan, but at the same time, I'm not going to put loads of stuff in it. I'm going to wait till see people tell me what they want, and then we're going to start populating it with stuff, and then maybe that could form the basis of some kind of giant open textbook kind of help resource. But you know, maybe at some point in the future, you know, getting carried away.
We're going to
coming on.
We're going to talk to they have in Yorkshire, they have a White Rose consortium for sort of library systems and things, and they, it turns out, have a kind of copyright community, and they're meeting on Friday, so we're going to join them virtually to talk to them about what, because they were sort of saying that their communities become really important, and they talk to each other quite a lot and share ideas, and don't use this listserv, and that's quite interesting. And I think that is around, because they have physical meetings, so there's quite high trust amongst the group. But it's maybe sort of thinking, you know, could a kind of regional approach work? I don't know. But we're gonna chat to them, because
but I think
there's no point finding a tool really that, you know, we've got to kind of understand first of all what it is that people want to share, and then kind of think about technology second.
But I think where it links in with this whole idea of openness and potential, not trolling as such, but I think there's on the list, I think there tends to be, amongst a sort of traditional academic kind of background, a desire, and also because the law is the law and you kind of argue points back and forth, that sometimes these things turn into academic legal arguments. Have in the past, some of them got quite heated, and I know in a way that is the nature of a discussion list to a certain extent, but it's how can you turn that into something which is kind of open and supportive, and people feel like they're able to contribute, rather than sitting back and watching an argument that makes them feel slightly uncomfortable and detached from it, and not really knowing what they're supposed to do, when all they're trying to do is do their job. There we go.
So does that answer the question about communities of practice? Chris, you could
we eat biscuits. We eat biscuits and we play games.
Yeah. You're going to have some kind of bake-off style thing, weren't you? You were going to bake biscuits as well.
I was going to.
Some cake sounds good.
But we could put a link to the blog post about it, where people can find out a bit more. But I am going to talk about that, because I think kind of this work in collaboration, rather than just, again, this third final spoiler is really kind of, it's about that approach, I think, rather than saying, well, let's get somebody who we can make them the expert, and then they sort all these problems out, and nobody else has to worry about it then. You know, that's not a particularly helpful. It's not sustainable, is it? No. For anything really. You know, I mean, we obviously do need specialists in any subject, but then you can become a bit of a victim of your own success. That Jane's the person that does copyright, Jane's the person that knows about digital literacy, so nobody else has to worry about it. You know, that's
I mean, imagine if you said the same thing for ethics. You know, you were the one that dealt with ethics, and therefore you no longer have to make any kind of ethical decision, because you're like Jiminy Cricket.
on that Jiminy Cricket note, I think we're gonna have to wrap up soon. So anybody else has any final comments or short questions, they'd be welcome. If you guys want to carry the conversation on, everybody is on Twitter, I think.
Yeah.
So we can carry on then, and we'll see you guys again maybe tomorrow for the rest of the conference. I'm online. I'm watching you guys online all the way from Egypt, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Great conversation. Perfect connection.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thank you for having
Bye.
us.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.